Freedom is seductive, not just because we can do what we want, spend time with people we choose, and build a career that brings meaning, but because deep down, we feel trapped even in the very world that promises freedom. This is the central tension Darius Foroux grapples with in What It Takes to Be Free. He begins by pointing out a paradox. Although many of us live in free societies, we remain prisoners of our own expectations, obligations, fears, and the narratives we tell ourselves. He challenges us to reckon with this. To be free, we must first free ourselves from ourselves. Recognizing this is the first giant leap. Not freedom itself, but the awareness that our chains are largely self-made. If this is your first time, subscribe so you don't miss out. Let's continue. Foroux draws from both timeless wisdom and personal experience to illustrate how internal captivity, not external lack, is often the root of our discontent. He argues that real freedom starts from understanding and owning our mental landscape. Before you can design a free life, you must know who you really are, what you truly value, and what internal scripts run under the surface. Many people are imprisoned by unconscious have-tos. Stories like, I have to succeed, I must please others, or I can't fail. These narratives force us to live on autopilot, doing what we think we should do, rather than what we deeply want to do. In that sense, the first lesson Foroux weaves in is that awareness is the gateway to liberation. It's not just about recognizing outward constraints, but about shining light on the myths we carry inside us. He urges readers to examine the assumptions they hold about success, security, identity, and obligation, and to ask, which of these do I accept by default, and which ones did I choose? This introspective work requires courage, because confronting these stories often means admitting we've been living under demands that aren't even ours. But it is in this confrontation that freedom begins to germinate. As we grow in self-awareness, Foroux shows that the next step is paying a price. Freedom, he insists, is not a free lunch. We talk about freedom as if it's a right, but Foroux paints a more nuanced picture. It's a reward for those who are willing to pay the cost. What cost? He lists many: giving up comfort, shedding lies, letting go of expectations, confronting financial fears, and even sacrificing some stability. This is his second embedded lesson. True freedom demands sacrifice. Foroux's own journey illustrates this. He writes honestly about the day he realized that having freedom isn't the same as using it. Despite writing and building a business, he felt weighed down by responsibilities he hadn't chosen consciously. So he made hard decisions. He left a stable life, embraced uncertainty, gave up certain comforts, and accepted that living freely would sometimes mean suffering. This lesson resonates everywhere. In the U.S., people leave high-paying corporate jobs to start businesses or follow more meaningful callings. But that move often requires giving up a predictable salary, comfortable benefits, and societal approval. Globally, this theme of sacrifice is no less real. In many countries, gaining freedom doesn't mean escaping external oppression as much as breaking internal chains. For example, young professionals in emerging economies often abandon conventional career paths or familial expectations to pursue their own definition of purpose. They might reject lucrative but emotionally draining jobs, resisting social pressures to conform in order to carve out a life that feels aligned with their values. The sacrifice is immediate and emotionally costly, but Foroux argues that it's necessary. Without giving up what cages you, you cannot become free. But awareness plus sacrifice is only the beginning. Foroux insists that freedom must be deliberately planned. That's his next big lesson. Freedom without a plan is fragile. You can't just wish to be free. You must design what freedom means for you and build a roadmap to reach it. He doesn't mean vague dreams. He means concrete values, goals, and practices aligned with your deepest desires. He offers practical techniques to do this, rooted in clarity, planning, and self-knowledge. One of his useful tools is the I can always exercise, a strategic way to confront fear and uncertainty. He suggests listing all the skills one has acquired, then writing down all the possible ways you could make a living, even if things go wrong. Foroux did this himself when he left his job. He listed everything he could do, from writing to sales to remote jobs, reminding himself constantly that he wasn't trapped. This exercise breaks the illusion that freedom requires perfect conditions. It teaches a crucial lesson. Resilience comes from knowing your fallback options. When you internalize that you can always pivot, the fear that holds you back loses its power. This planning phase connects directly to financial freedom, a core component of Foroux's model. He argues that real freedom includes financial self-reliance. You need a freedom fund, money you control, not money that controls you. This doesn't mean accumulating enormous wealth, but building enough cushion to make choices without being hostage to debt or societal pressure. Foroux warns that debt is one of the greatest shackles. When you owe money, someone else owns a part of your life. His financial advice is practical and accessible. Live below your means, build savings, reduce debt, and gradually build a financial buffer. He doesn't flirt with get-rich-quick schemes. Instead, he emphasizes steady, intentional progress. This principle applies to people in the U.S. where debt burdens from student loans or mortgages often dictate life choices, as well as globally, in regions where credit systems or high-interest loans trap people into cycles of dependency. By building financial freedom, you strengthen your autonomy. You create space to make decisions not out of desperation, but out of choice. Alongside financial freedom, Foroux highlights the importance of nurturing self-esteem and aligning with core values. He argues that to be free, you must anchor your life in principles that matter to you, not just what you think you should want. Many people live with vague ideals, chasing success without knowing what success truly means for them. Foroux invites readers to define their core values, to articulate clearly what they stand for, what they refuse to compromise on, and what gives them meaning. This alignment brings enduring freedom. When decisions are rooted in values, even hardship feels purposeful. Across the world, this concept resonates strongly. In the U.S., people are increasingly rejecting go-with-the-flow careers and instead building lives around what they believe in: sustainable entrepreneurship, remote work, social impact. In Europe and Asia, younger generations are similarly reconsidering traditional paths, asking, what kind of legacy do I want to leave? How do I want to spend my time? Foroux's call to define values is not abstract. It's a very practical tool to shape freedom. Once you know what matters, you can say no to things that don't. That leads directly into another lesson Foroux embeds. Learning to say no is essential for freedom. Freedom doesn't mean saying yes to everything. In fact, true freedom often requires tough rejections of opportunities, relationships, expectations, and even ideas. Foroux argues that if you are always saying yes to what others want, you end up living someone else's life.
Saying no is not selfish. It's a declaration of self-respect and boundaries. By practicing no, you protect your energy, your time, and your sense of purpose. In an American corporate context, this could mean turning down promotions or roles that pay well but drain your soul. Globally, in collectivist cultures, saying no might feel taboo or disrespectful, but it becomes a powerful step towards self-sovereignty. Foroux's lesson here is that freedom is not just about possibilities, it's also about limits. Coming out of saying no, Foroux returns to the idea that freedom involves choosing discomfort. Real freedom, he says, demands that we willingly endure pain, risk, and uncertainty. To live freely, you must embrace suffering as part of the price. Many of us run from discomfort, seeking comfort, stability, and safety. But Foroux warns that comfort is a cage in disguise. The free person learns to suffer voluntarily, to take responsibility, accept risk, and face challenges head-on, because those are the very things that yield growth. This resonates with countless modern stories. In Silicon Valley, many founders risk financial stability, relationships, and sanity to build their vision. They accept seeking funding, failing, iterating, and sacrificing short-term comfort. In emerging economies, young people often move abroad, confront cultural dislocation, and face financial insecurity in pursuit of their dreams. What it takes to be free teaches that suffering is not just part of freedom, it is freedom's currency. Integrated with the lesson of embracing discomfort is the practice of honest living. Foroux insists that to be free, we must stop lying to others, to ourselves, and about who we are. Lying, whether to secure approval, avoid pain, or hide imperfections, erodes autonomy. Authenticity, by contrast, is liberating. By being honest about your desires, fears, and limitations, you reclaim ownership of your life. This honesty helps you align decisions with your values, produce genuine relationships, and navigate life on your own terms. On a global scale, this resonates with people rejecting curated personas on social media. In the U.S., mental health conversations increasingly emphasize vulnerability, truth-telling, and boundary setting. Foroux's encouragement to live honestly is not just moral, it's strategic. The more transparent you are, the less you're bound by the expectations of others. All these lessons, awareness, sacrifice, planning, saying no, embracing discomfort, honesty, financial security, value alignment, build toward a final, deeply personal transformation, becoming the ruler of your own kingdom. Foroux's metaphor is apt. You are the sovereign of your inner world, the architect of your life, and you get to decide how that kingdom is built, governed, and grown. But sovereignty requires both power and responsibility. Freedom is not the absence of constraints. It's the choice of which constraints you accept, how you pay for them, and which principles you bet on. In the American context, this might mean an individual pivoting from a career that no longer fits and building a lifestyle business around their passions. In countries like India or Nigeria, it might mean rejecting generational expectations, relocating, or investing in a values-aligned project. The universal thread remains. Freedom is a choice, and you must own every part of it. By the end of the first part of Foroux's message, the reader begins to understand that freedom is not something you passively receive or wait for. It's something you design, pay for, and protect. You will learn that the cost is high, but the return is priceless. The ability to live on your own terms, aligned with who you are, and free from internal chains. Having laid the foundation of awareness, sacrifice, planning, and embracing discomfort, Foroux transitions into the active practices that define freedom. He emphasizes that knowledge alone does not free us. It is action guided by intentional principles that produces liberation. This is a critical lesson. To win your inner battles and external independence, you must convert insight into habits. Awareness without application, he warns, is merely self-deception. Freedom is built daily in the small decisions we make, not in grand philosophical declarations. One of the first practical habits he advocates is deliberate time management. Freedom, according to Foroux, is inseparable from control over your schedule. Those who feel perpetually busy are often the most trapped. He insists that you must decide consciously how you allocate attention, energy, and effort. Every commitment should serve your values or growth. Otherwise, it drains your freedom. The lesson here is twofold. Time is finite, and control over it is the ultimate currency of autonomy. In the U.S., entrepreneurs and freelancers increasingly exemplify this principle. Many consciously reject rigid 9-to-5 structures to prioritize projects that matter to them. Globally, digital nomads in Europe, Southeast Asia, and Africa build routines around meaningful work rather than social expectation. In all contexts, Individuals who manage time deliberately enjoy not just productivity, but a psychological sense of sovereignty, the mental space to make choices and act purposefully. From time management flows another embedded lesson. Financial literacy is non-negotiable for freedom. Foroux argues that without understanding money, how to earn, save, invest, and spend wisely, freedom remains an illusion. People often tie themselves to high-paying jobs not out of passion, but necessity, because poor financial planning leaves them vulnerable. True autonomy comes when you can meet your needs without being beholden to external forces. This doesn't require wealth accumulation beyond reason, but strategic planning, disciplined saving, and thoughtful investing. The universality of this lesson is striking. In the U.S., mounting student debt prevents millions from making independent life choices. Young adults defer homeownership, entrepreneurship, or travel because their finances are hostage to obligation. In Nigeria and other emerging economies, unpredictable income and limited access to financial tools can similarly constrain independence. Yet those who develop savings habits, understand investments, and manage debt effectively create breathing room to act freely. Foroux emphasizes that financial knowledge multiplies freedom because it empowers choice and reduces dependence. Closely related is his lesson on reducing attachment to outcomes. Many people feel trapped not by circumstance, but by their emotional investment in specific results. Foroux encourages cultivating flexibility and resilience. Freedom is preserved when you maintain options, adapt to change, and approach life with a long-term perspective. This principle is illustrated in countless modern contexts. Startups in Silicon Valley pivot regularly to adapt to market conditions, and in Europe, freelancers diversify client portfolios to avoid dependency on a single income source. Globally, small business owners in Nigeria or India who maintain adaptable strategies survive volatile markets. Foroux's message is clear. Attachment limits freedom. Adaptability strengthens it.
From adaptivity emerges the crucial lesson of self-reliance and responsibility. Freedom is not passive. It requires ownership of choices, consequences, and life direction. Foroux repeatedly asserts that blaming others, external systems, or circumstances keeps people trapped. Those who embrace responsibility, even when inconvenient, gain true autonomy. Responsibility becomes both a shield and a compass. It prevents victimhood and guides strategic decisions. Globally, responsibility manifests in different forms. In the U.S., individuals leaving corporate roles to freelance must manage taxes, contracts, health insurance, and retirement planning themselves. In developing countries, independent entrepreneurs balance uncertainty, supply chain risks, and market fluctuations. Each scenario requires proactive management. By taking responsibility, they internalize control, reinforcing the principle that freedom and ownership are inseparable. Another pivotal lesson in Part 2 is intentional detachment from societal pressure. Foroux explains that many perceive freedom as the absence of authority, but the deeper challenge is breaking free from collective expectations. Cultural norms, family pressures, and peer judgments often subtly dictate behavior. To live freely, you must identify which expectations align with your values and which are externally imposed. Saying yes to self-authored choices and no to imposed ones is a profound act of liberation. This is reflected in global patterns of self-directed career changes. Millennials and Gen Z professionals in the U.S. are increasingly prioritizing lifestyle design over traditional career prestige. In Asia, young workers reject familial prescriptions for certain professions, choosing startups or creative industries instead. Similarly, in Africa, individuals often leave traditional roles to pursue social enterprises or digital work. Foroux emphasizes that detachment from societal scripts creates mental space to choose deliberately, which is central to freedom. A logical extension of this lesson is the cultivation of emotional resilience. Foroux asserts that freedom is fragile if our minds remain captive to fear, anger, or anxiety. Emotional discipline is not denial, but regulation, learning to respond rather than react, observing thoughts without succumbing, and cultivating stability under stress. Freedom, he teaches, is not only external independence, but internal mastery. This principle is validated globally. Entrepreneurs in volatile markets develop resilience by anticipating setbacks. Professionals in high-pressure environments, such as Wall Street or London finance, rely on mindfulness practices to navigate volatility. Across cultures, individuals who cultivate emotional fortitude retain agency even amid chaos. From resilience, Foroux transitions to building supportive systems. He underscores that freedom doesn't mean isolation. Rather, it thrives on relationships, networks, and structures that reinforce autonomy. Surrounding yourself with mentors, peers, and communities that align with your values accelerates growth and protects against external manipulation. Freedom is strengthened when systems, both personal and social, amplify deliberate choices and reduce friction in life. Globally, support systems are crucial. In the U.S., entrepreneur networks, mastermind groups, and coaching communities provide advice, accountability, and resources. In Africa and Asia, informal networks, cooperatives, and peer communities serve similar roles. By creating and engaging in intentional networks, individuals multiply their capacity to act freely while buffering risk. Building on networks is the practice of strategic simplification. Foroux teaches that complexity often traps people. Freedom is enhanced when life, work, and commitments are simplified and aligned with priorities. This requires ruthless prioritization, eliminating unnecessary obligations, decluttering physical and mental space, and focusing on high-impact activities. Modern minimalism movements in the U.S. reflect this, as do global trends in digital and lifestyle simplification. The lesson is universal. Simplicity amplifies freedom by reducing friction and cognitive load. Finally, Part 2 emphasizes continuous learning as a pillar of freedom. Knowledge, skills, and adaptivity are not optional. They sustain independence. Foroux encourages proactive learning, reading, experimenting, observing, and reflecting. Learning widens the range of choices and prepares you to pivot when circumstances shift. In the American context, lifelong learning enables professionals to switch industries or start businesses. Globally, individuals in uncertain economic landscapes leverage online education, cross-training, or mentorships to build flexibility. The more competent and informed you become, the more autonomous your decisions are, reinforcing the central thesis that freedom is both internal and external. At this point of the book, the reader grasps that freedom is multidimensional. It is awareness, discipline, financial security, emotional mastery, social alignment, and continuous skill building. Each lesson builds naturally into the next. Awareness enables sacrifice. Sacrifice demands planning. Planning requires action. Action demands resilience. Resilience is strengthened by networks, and networks amplify learning. This systemic perspective underscores Foroux's argument that freedom is not an event, but an ongoing practice, a daily cultivation of choice, courage, and agency. Having explored the foundational principles and practical applications of freedom, Foroux emphasizes the ultimate integration. Freedom is sustained by continual self-mastery, intentional living, and alignment with values. The journey towards autonomy requires more than insight. It demands the consistent application of deliberate choices across all areas of life. He begins by stressing the importance of consistency in small daily actions. True freedom is not created by one grand gesture, but by repeated decisions that reinforce independence. Whether managing finances,
guarding attention, maintaining health, or nurturing relationships, incremental discipline compounds over time. Individuals who adhere to consistent routines and principles steadily increase their capacity for autonomy. In the United States, entrepreneurs often begin with side projects that require daily attention before achieving financial independence. Globally, self-employed workers in India, Kenya, and Brazil rely on structured routines to navigate unpredictable markets. The lesson is clear. Freedom is built through sustained microactions. Resilience is another critical pillar. External circumstances, economic instability, political uncertainty, or unexpected personal crises cannot always be controlled. What can be controlled is one's response. Freedom requires the mental fortitude to adapt, recover, and continue pursuing one's chosen path. During the COVID-19 pandemic, millions faced sudden income loss or career disruption. Those who developed resilience by upskilling, pivoting careers, or creating alternate income streams preserved autonomy. Similarly, Nigerian entrepreneurs adapted businesses to online platforms, maintaining agency despite economic volatility. The lesson is clear. Freedom is durable when supported by resilience.
Courage also plays an indispensable role. To act in alignment with one's values often requires challenging societal norms or confronting personal fears. In the United States, this is seen in professionals leaving secure corporate jobs to pursue entrepreneurial or creative endeavors. Globally, in collectivist societies, courage manifests in individuals setting boundaries, relocating for opportunities, or pursuing unconventional careers. Foroux makes it clear that courage is the engine of freedom, enabling us to make decisions aligned with our deepest values rather than external pressures. Responsibility is inseparable from autonomy. True freedom demands accepting the consequences of one's choices instead of blaming circumstances or others. This principle bridges personal and societal spheres. American freelancers and entrepreneurs who embrace accountability thrive, while those who defer responsibility often find themselves constrained by dependency. In Europe, professionals negotiating flexible work arrangements must take ownership of output. In African contexts, entrepreneurs who own both successes and failures of ventures cultivate credibility, experience, and long-term autonomy. Responsibility is thus not a burden, but the backbone of enduring freedom. Emotional and mental mastery is equally essential. Freedom is hollow if one remains enslaved by fear, guilt, resentment, or constant concern about others' opinions. Developing emotional intelligence, mindfulness, and deliberate thought processes enables individuals to respond with clarity rather than react impulsively. During the global pandemic, individuals who applied mental discipline navigated uncertainty with greater autonomy, both in the U.S. and abroad. Inner mastery ensures that the mind supports freedom rather than undermines it. Foroux highlights the role of the environment in sustaining autonomy. Surroundings, whether physical, social, or digital, can either enable or constrain freedom. Minimizing distractions, curating meaningful social connections, and organizing physical and digital spaces reinforce autonomy. In the U.S., professionals create home offices and accountability networks to maintain focus. Globally, individuals adapt workspaces and social circles to strengthen independence. The principle is clear. Your environment shapes your freedom, and it must be designed intentionally. Financial independence remains a central theme. Money amplifies freedom, but only when managed deliberately. Automation, savings, investment, and avoiding unnecessary dependency allow money to serve life goals rather than dictate them. Across confidence, disciplined financial practices empower individuals to act according to their values. In the U.S., FIRE advocates use structured saving and investing to gain choice. In Africa and Asia, micro-investments and entrepreneurial initiatives provide similar leverage. Financial control is a practical pathway to autonomy. Continuous learning and skill acquisition are integral. Freedom is not static. It requires expanding capabilities to adapt to changing circumstances. Globally, self-taught entrepreneurs leverage online courses to start businesses, while Americans reskill to navigate automation or career transitions. The lesson is that the ability to learn and adapt is itself a form of freedom. Purpose-driven living completes the framework. Autonomy without direction can feel aimless. True freedom combines independence with meaning, guiding priorities, energy, and decisions. Americans increasingly pursue careers aligned with social impact or personal passions, while globally, educators, social entrepreneurs, and activists work in challenging conditions because their endeavors align with deeply held values. Purpose reinforces resilience, focus, and satisfaction, ensuring that freedom is sustainable. Letting go of attachments that no longer serve you is another essential practice. Fear of failure, concern about societal judgment, or reliance on possessions and approval can subtly erode freedom. Relinquishing these attachments liberates energy and strengthens agency. Americans downsize or leave unfulfilling careers to reclaim autonomy, while globally, individuals negotiate cultural, familial, or professional pressures to pursue meaningful paths. Detachment enhances both personal autonomy and peace of mind. Foroux synthesizes these principles. Freedom is the continuous alignment of awareness, discipline, action, responsibility, relationships, purpose, resilience, and mindset. Achieving autonomy is not a one-time event. It is a deliberate, lifelong process. Each choice, habit, and decision reinforces independence or erodes it if neglected. Across the world, individuals navigating political, economic, or social uncertainty preserve freedom by practicing deliberate, value-driven action consistently. The concluding call to action is compelling. Freedom is not granted, it is earned. Every day presents an opportunity to act intentionally. Identify limiting pattern, take a deliberate action, and commit to the practices that reinforce autonomy. Start now by managing your time, prioritizing your values, cultivating discipline, and building resilience. Each step, however small, brings you closer to a life lived freely, intentionally, and fully. In modern life, the examples abound. An American entrepreneur automates finances and invests in personal growth. A Nigerian freelance developer leverages online platforms to escape local constraints. A European professional chooses a minimalist lifestyle to prioritize freedom over social expectation. A South Asian educator expands skills to access global opportunities. Across continents, the principle holds. Freedom is deliberate, disciplined, and sustained by aligned choices. Darius Foroux leaves readers with a profound truth. Autonomy is both an internal state and an external reality. By cultivating awareness, discipline, courage, responsibility, emotional mastery, relationships, financial control, learning, purpose, and detachment, individuals can construct a life where they act on their terms. Each day is an opportunity to reclaim freedom, and each deliberate choice compounds into a lifetime of self-determined living. Freedom is not found, it is intentionally built, nurtured, and practiced every day. If this message resonated with you, subscribe and join us for more wisdom that fuels growth.